What if you could lead more effectively and go home on time? Welcome to the Lightbulb. I'm Zoe Thompson, leadership and performance coach, and each week I bring you 3 practical insights from my work helping impact-driven leaders transform from reactive to intentional leadership so they can finish work on time and take guilt-free time off, creating success that feels as good as it looks. Let's jump in. Episode 10 and the penultimate episode before we get to the end of 2025. So I have got clients in this next coming week, so I will do one more episode before we pause over the Christmas and New Year period, and then we'll pick it back up in January when I pick back up with clients. So I'm pausing Love Actually to sit down and record this. I've got a cuppa, chill vibe. So yeah, I've got 3 really interesting light bulbs. As always, I have some great conversations with clients. Had a couple of workshops this week as well. So lots of information to pick from, really. So here are my 3 light bulbs from this week. So the first one's around sleep and really boundarying our sleep. So we often boundary our health, our well-being, the things that are most important to us. But I think one of the things that we often overlook is the importance of sleep. And you've been talking about it with the young people that I've been working with on the Saturday morning workshops, because we all know teens do not want to go to bed. But actually just explaining to them why sleep is so important, especially in the years that they're at, has actually helped. And actually a few of them have said they've been getting a little bit more sleep and things have been going a little bit better. So it's interesting, isn't it? Once we get to our adulthood and we don't have somebody telling us to go to bed, it can be one of the things that can slip quite quickly. And that's the first light bulb, because that came up with 2 different clients this week. Both really successful, both really good at what they do, both work in evenings, and actually both of them describing that they're tired, they're overwhelmed, that actually their decision making during the day is a lot slower. They're missing things because they're tired, and that overwhelm means that they're finding that actually things feel a lot worse than they actually are. And when we explored what was going on and what could be different that would really help, sleep was a big part of it. So we need to boundary our sleep. And that means we need to boundary what we do in the evenings to help protect our sleep. And that probably for most of us needs to be a non-negotiable. We can't afford to be tired. We can't afford to be sick. And sleep will help with both of those. Also going to help with our energy levels. And actually, we're going to be much more focused. So decision making, the way that we work, is going to be so much better. So we really need to catch when we are working in the evenings. And I appreciate there will be some times where you'll need to work a little bit later. But do you need to work as late as you are? It is going to still be there in the morning. And you know that I talk a lot about being able to go home on time. What's happened and what came up with both of these clients is that going home on time was starting to shift. So going home on time wasn't 5 and it wasn't 6 and it wasn't 7. It was going home when the last task was finished. And we know the last task is very rarely finished. Or it was going home and then logging straight back on again. And we know that doesn't work either. So we need to be really careful about how we creep the hours that we work. Because if we're sitting in work time and we're giving ourselves permission to do that later, we're expanding the time of our working day rather than when we've got that 8-hour working day. It's forcing us to be more efficient. It's forcing us to be more effective. It's forcing us to prioritize. It's forcing us to manage our time, and it's forcing us to manage our energy, because we haven't got 12 hours to work with, we've got 8 hours to work with. Or by the time we take out our meetings and our calls, we've probably got 4 or 5 hours to work with. So it forces us to be more efficient and it forces us to be more effective. More hours doesn't necessarily mean more output. often it means less effective output. So we need to make sure that we prioritize our rest and our self-care. So we put things in the evening that help us to unwind, that help us to relax or re-energize, and that will then also help us to stay more focused during the day. So we've got this great opportunity. We've got the Christmas and New Year break coming up, and that gives us an opportunity to really switch off over the Christmas period, give us some time to relax, recharge, re-energize. We need to make sure that when we return in the new year that we're setting routine and those boundaries that are going to protect what is most important. And I would strongly encourage you to put sleep at the top of your list of one of the things that is most important. You know you shouldn't work evenings. You know you shouldn't have to work evenings. So we want to make sure that we boundary that's working time and that we protect our sleep. Okay, light bulb number 2. So this came up during a one-to-one client session. We're talking about how to motivate the team and how to improve collaboration without additional financial costs. So most of us have got a limited budget. We have to be very careful with the decisions that we make. We also want to empower our team. Talked around the importance of autonomy and the importance of creating that team and the importance of competency. And looking at subject matter experts within our team can be a really good way of doing that. What happens in a lot of organizations, traditionally, everything goes through the leader. Everybody sees the leader as being the person who has all of the information and becomes the go-to. This conversation came about because we were talking about how to reduce this leader, this business owner being the go-to person. How do they encourage their team? On the back of the 3 before me that I've talked about in earlier episodes, how do we encourage our people to use each other, to use information, to use resources that are available to them, not just going to those of you who are in leadership roles for a quick answer? So we talked about delegating tasks, particularly around team members' strengths and preferences of what they're really good at. We also talked about a subject matter expert approach. So looking at what the team members are really good at and identifying them as the go-to experts for these specific areas. Now, this leverages individual interests, it enhances collaboration, and it also builds individual confidence. We did this when I worked in the Force Service Centre in the police. I had a team of 20 people, and all of them naturally would gravitate towards different parts of the business. They would naturally be more interested in some areas than others. So we used that to our advantage. We knew that they were reading the emails. We knew that they were keeping an eye out for information on changes. We knew that they would probably be the ones that would spend a little bit more time understanding changes or understanding updates. And so we gave them all the opportunity to pick an area that they were interested in and self-identify as the go-to expert. And that meant then as a team, they really started to recognize each other's strengths. They also started to build trust and rapport of getting to know the team, going to them for questions, going to them for help and support. And it was a really good way of being able to increase their confidence, but also increase the team building element of it as well. It creates the recognition element without any financial implications. And it also reduces the leader being the bottleneck. And as I said, it connects really nicely with that 3 before me that we talked about in episode 8. Now, a lot of leaders will already delegate based on strengths. We know that we're going to ask the people that, firstly, we know that they know how to do it. We trust them to be able to do a really good job with it. But it also then means that we're not just delegating to those people, they're self-identifying and the team are going to those people as well. The more confidence they have, the more they see what they can contribute to the team, the more they see their significance with what they play in the role, the more they feel valued. And we know that this increases them showing up into work, increases attendance, reduces absence and presenteeism. So it also means retention as well, because people want to stay where they feel valued. And this is a great way to be able to do that. So there's a development opportunity here as well. So people who are seeking that growth, when we've got them identified as subject matter experts, we can also call upon them in those busy periods as well. And this is what came up in the workshop with the accountants, the leadership development workshop. We were talking about how to help them to lead through busy periods. And we talked about this as well. Where is there an opportunity for those who are striving to develop and looking for potential opportunities? How can we use them in busy periods to help us and to help deliver, but also to help them with their development as well? Building that capability across the teams while recognizing the individual expertise can really help with that. So if you don't have the ability to give pay rises or to give a bonus, if your budget is tight and you can't give people extra pay for additional responsibilities, this is a great way to increase motivation, increase development opportunities, increase their confidence and self-efficacy and autonomy too, without costing you financially. There will be a cost in terms of time while they take time to learn and increase their knowledge and their skills. But it's a great way to leverage what people are already good at and interested in. So you can formalize it. You can keep it pretty informal too. And if you are already doing this, or if you do decide to do this, I would love to hear what you recognize changes and shifts within your team. Third light bulb, the future ready leadership. This was the workshop we did on Thursday. I really enjoyed delivering this. If you're client or part of the community, the workshop is uploaded into the resource library. If you are thinking to join the community in the new year, then the workshop will be available to you to be able to watch back as part of the resource library, and the resource library is part of the community options and is included in your membership. The monthly workshops are included if you're working with me one-to-one, or if you are part of the community. That's part of how we work together. Future ready leadership, we're looking at why your old habits are becoming the biggest liability. So one of the things that I talked about in the workshop is, in my opinion, that the leaders who are more flexible and more adaptable will be the leaders who are most effective and high-performing leaders in 2020. So what this means is that when we have more experience as a leader, we tend to fall into patterns of what we know works. And what we're noticing is that the speed of change that we are experiencing in organizations and businesses at the moment means that we need to be flexible and adaptable to be able to adapt to the changes and not just survive them, but really use them to our advantage, to look for the opportunities within the change, to look for innovation within that change. And that requires adaptability and flexibility. So leaders in 2026 need to be able to be both. Now, if we have been a leader for a long time and we're pretty set in our ways of how we do things, then that can potentially create a challenge for us as we move into the next 12 months. If we've been in leadership for a while, what we do, we're very comfortable with, we're very familiar with, we're very confident with, and that can become a disadvantage when things are moving very quickly. Our brain wants to keep doing what works, even when it's not working anymore. And what we were talking about is how things that have worked for years are just not landing in the same way anymore. Our environments are changing. We've got hybrid work, we've got remote teams, we've got people working across multiple locations. Our situations are changing. We've got AI, speed of change of technology, and it's all changing at a very rapid pace. And the people dynamic within workplaces is changing. We've got baby boomers right through to Gen Z in the same team, and they've got vastly different values and they communicate in very different ways. Dynamics and diversity within our teams is changing very rapidly. We've got some people with very old school work ethic versus others who have a very modern workforce expectations. What does professional look like? What does good communication look like? It's very different. So as leaders, we need to think about how we need to evolve to keep up with all of this. We need to recognize what our strengths are that we want to keep. We need to be very clear on our values and our principles. And then we need to look at how we can be more flexible and more adaptable to really accommodate the changes that are happening. Leadership is really changing from transactional command control type situations, which is very much how it was when I started working in the police. Leadership now is transformational. It's much more a coaching approach. It's all about empowering our teams, getting the most out of them, helping them to reach their full potential. Very, very different to how it used to be. And we've gone from wanting expert leaders to more adaptive leaders, people who develop the expertise in others rather than being the expert themselves. So we need to be able to communicate differently for different team members. And the example I use is for those of you who have more than one child, you'll recognize that you have to show up as a different parent for each of your children to get the best out of them. And leadership is the same. So for those of you who don't have children, you'll know from your own leadership experience, the different people on your team need you to be a different leader for each of them. And that diversity in approach, the adaptability and that flexibility is what makes you a really good leader. And stepping into the next 12 months in 2026, this is going to be your strength, being able to let go of the old ways of doing things because they're no longer working and step into trying things that are different and really embracing the differences. It's going to be huge. And it will be a sliding scale. We'll want to turn some things up. We want to turn some things down. It's not an on or off switch. It is a sliding scale. And we're going to need some courage before we have confidence in leading in a different way. And that is a big part of future-proofing your leadership, recognizing that you've got a lot of tools in the toolbox, which will help you to approach things in different ways. Also, the courage that will come before you have the confidence to do things differently. And knowing that, as you heard me say before, practice makes permanent. And the more we practice doing things differently, the more tools we put into the toolbox, the more tools we have in the toolbox, the more confidence we can have in our competence and also in our resilience to be able to flex and adapt to things as they arise. And that's huge. It's huge for you as a leader. It's huge for you as your team. Now, one of the things that will help with that, you've heard me talk about here before, is the 4 Ps. When we want to shift or break a pattern of how we do things, we need to force the stop. We need the pause. So the 4 Ps is great for this. It gives us the opportunity to pause, prioritize. How do I want to lead in this situation? Not how have I always done it? Not an automatic reactive response. We don't want to automatically do what we've always done. We want to pause, think about how we want to deal with this, prioritize what is most important, and then we can proceed with purpose. This will help us to catch those default patterns. So if you are somebody who's been in leadership for a while, this is where your experience might be your biggest liability. Catching those habits that have made you become successful, but are now becoming outdated, that's where you can work this to your advantage. Your brain will try and default to old patterns. That's what it does. Even when your other part of the brain is telling you that doesn't work anymore, that's not working, that's not landing, it's still going to want to go to what it's always done because that's the evidence base that it has. So until we show up and do things differently, we can't put new evidence in to feed into that system. So we want to evolve without losing what we know makes us a good leader. It was such an interesting workshop. If you weren't able to join live and you haven't yet watched it back, I would encourage you to sit and watch it through. It's going to take you less than an hour and there's a lot of information in there. There's also a workbook attached with it that you can sit and go through. If you are not currently a client or part of the community, and you are interested in having access to this workshop, then please reach out to me and we can find a way to get that to you. And I can talk you through how you can join the membership. And actually, if you sign up now, you'll get a few weeks free over the Christmas and New Year period before you join officially in January. So if that's something that you're interested in, pop me a message or just head to the website and all the information is there. So those are my 3 for this week. I'm going to finish this cup of tea because I've managed to sit here, and whilst I've been talking, I haven't actually drunk any of my tea. It feels like it's now ready to drink, and I'm going to edit this out and get this uploaded for you. Watch the last bit of Love Actually and chill for my Sunday evening before I am off to the airport tomorrow for another basketball trip, this time to Romania. It's another early start, so I'm looking for a very early night tonight because we are leaving for the airport just after 4 o'clock tomorrow morning. It's going to make Monday a long day. I've not been to Romania before, so looking forward to this trip. And I'll share a little bit more about it in the next episode, which will be the last one for 2025. I'd love to know how you're finding these, what you're loving, what you want more of, what you might want that's different. I would love to hear your feedback. But I'm hoping that you're getting some value from these each week. I'm certainly enjoying reflecting on the weeks and seeing what comes up. Have a great week ahead. And those are your 3 takeaways for this week. Before you go, ask yourself, what's my light bulb moment from this? And now that I know what I know, what will I do differently? Choose one action, however small, and commit to it. That's how overwhelmed and reactive becomes aligned and intentional. Don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you next week on the next episode of The Lightbulb.